Hello, thank you for joining me today on today's video series installing CentOS 6 and installing and configuring Domino 852 on CentOS 6 and then installing Lotus Domino Traveler onto Domino sitting on top of CentOS 6. I'm going to be using Oracle's VirtualBox to do my installation simply because it's a whole lot easier to cut a video on a VirtualBox system than a real machine. So here's the settings for this machine that we're going to be using. CentOS 6 on Domino Traveler, there's that, yay, not really that big of a deal. System information that I'm installing on a 3 GB of memory system. I've only dedicated a single processor to it. I've enabled this stuff here. I put 128 megabytes onto my video RAM, and I have enabled my 3D acceleration. As I said, my total storage is 20 gigabytes of hard drive space is reserved for this operating system. And here for my IDE controller, I've got an ISO of the CentOS DVD, the CentOS 6 DVD. So let's go ahead and fire this up. This is exactly what you would see after, of course, the VirtualBox once you installed, if you're installing the DVD on a brand new system. So I'm going to go ahead and choose to install an upgrade. CentOS 6 was released just 2 weeks ago. It's the latest version of the CentOS operating system, which is a public version of an enterprise level operating or Linux operating system distribution. Okay, if you were doing your installation on your machine and you came up with this, basically what this window here is asking you is, do you need to test your installation media prior to doing the installation, because sometimes you'll get a faulty DVD and stuff like that. So if this was the very first time that you're ever using a particular DVD, it's generally a good idea to do the test. In this case, I've already dealt with this particular ISO. I know it's good. There is no reason whatsoever for me to do the test other than to waste time, so I'm not going to do it. So we're just going to continue on with the installation. Again, this is what you would normally see on your machine. Let me get some of this other stuff off the screen and out of there so we can work a little cleaner. Okay, so here's the window that would come up. I'm going to go ahead and choose Next. Now I'm going to be running through this fairly quickly, and I'm going to be essentially choosing defaults on everything just because I want to show how easy this is. Basic storage devices, I'm not doing anything magic or crazy. It's going to give me a warning here telling me that all of the information on my hard drive is going to be wiped out. And again, because this is a virtual machine, that's all of the information on the virtual hard drive dedicated to this machine. I don't care. It needs to be wiped out. I'm just going to go with my defaults, localhost and local domain for my machine name, because doesn't matter to me. Let me go find the closest location to me. Detroit. I'm actually in Grand Rapids, but there's not a dot for Grand Rapids, so we're going to go ahead and choose Detroit. Okay, at this point it needs the root password. If you've never dealt with Linux before, oops, I typed that wrong. Hold on just a moment. If you've never dealt with Linux before and you've come from a pretty much pure Windows environment, I'm going to go ahead and choose to use all the space here and hit Next. And I'm going to write the changes to my disk, and it's going to start doing the wonderful stuff here. And again, like I said, I just chose all the defaults. I'm letting it do its thing simply because I want to get through this as quickly as possible to show you how easy it is. Now, getting back to that root thing. If you're like me and you come from primarily Windows environment, you know what? Let me tell you about root in a minute. Let's look at this. These are the choices of the type of installation for the server that I want to choose here. Normally you would choose minimal and then add things on if you were doing a basic server, a database server, web server, whatever. Because in this situation I'm going to be installing Domino on the machine, Domino is actually going to perform all my server operations, so I don't need any of these server choices. Minimal would actually work just fine for me, except for the fact that I personally have never configured Domino or Traveler without the aid of the graphical user environment on the server. It can be done. People have done it. You know, super hot magical admins do it all the time in just a pure text-only type environment, just a pure command line type environment, and they're good at that. I'm not. I'm more comfortable with the graphical environment, so I'm just going to go ahead and say, you know what, give me the desktop, and by default, CentOS is going to go ahead and choose the GNOME desktop for me instead of KDE or any of the others. Now, if you don't know what I just said, don't worry about it. Let's get this going, and I'll kind of try and explain this as best I can. So we're checking some dependencies for packages. It's just kind of doing its thing. And we're going to start copying files. It's going to start doing the installation. While it's beginning to do this installation, I'll talk for a little bit. Let me move this down so we can actually get a clock and see the clock run. There's a little clock hiding in the background. Look on the clock. Yay! Ooh. Okay, so it's going to do its thing. Now, real quick, let me brief you. If you know about Linux already, just watch this clock and it'll rotate really fast, and wait till it gets to the end, because all I'm going to do is talk about a couple of simple things. Let's start with the root ID. If you came from the Windows world and you're like me and you know nothing about Linux, that's fine, don't worry about it. The root ID is essentially the master ID that knows all, sees all, and has master access to everything. So you need to protect this ID. You need to use it very, very sparingly. It needs to have a good, solid, secure password. Enough preaching on that. The second part of that is obviously you use a different ID for most of your operations within your Linux environment. Kind of like in Windows, if you really know what you're doing and doing things right, you don't use the default administrator ID. It's a bad idea. You switch to root only for certain operations, and generally you never touch it. So there's that part. Now I've explained the other thing. I talked about the desktop and why we're doing that. I talked about when CentOS came out. So okay, at this point I think we're good. I'm going to hit pause on my recording, and in just a second you're going to see this clock here change dramatically, because there's no reason for you to sit here and watch while all of these packages are being installed. That's kind of a waste of time, because it's just going to install. So I'm going to hit pause, and in just a moment the clock is going to change. Okay, it's doing the last installation thing there. That printer installation takes a few minutes. While it's finishing that up, let me talk a little bit. One of the things I forgot to brief you on was I mentioned GNOME and KDE and ooh. Okay, if you're a veteran Linux person, you already know this. You don't really care. It's not a big deal. If again, like you're a Windows person, kind of moving to Linux. Let me see if I can explain this. Think of the Linux operating system, think of it as like an onion. It comes in layers, and down in the core you've got your core kernel in the middle, and then you got kind of layers wrapped around it, extending out. And out here we have the graphical user environment, the GUI. And unlike in Windows, where you have a single Windows GUI, single Windows API, upon which you can apply themes and graphics and junk like that. In Linux, there are many of them, many flavors or UIs or whatever word you want to use there to describe. There's a whole bunch, and they all have their own different APIs, their own different quirks and stuff like that. The two big ones are GNOME, G-N-O-M-E, and KDE, K-D-E, pretty simple. And those are the two big ones. And generally, when you're installing a Linux operating system, you're generally given the choice. Which one do you want? And in this one, I'm sure if I'd gone into the advanced settings, I could find it, but I didn't, because by default, oh look, we're going to hit reboot and let this reboot while I continue talking. By default, in CentOS 6, it chooses GNOME for you. You could choose KDE if you chose to do so, but by default you get GNOME. So that's just, as an answer to that question. So the machine is rebooting now. So I guess it really wasn't. It doesn't really take that long, as you can see by the clock. We've gone maybe 12 minutes. So here's the machine coming up. We've got some additional configuration that we need to do here. in order to get the operating system running, and I'm going to show you that as soon as it finishes booting here in just a couple of seconds. So in the meantime, we wait a little kind of patiently. We can look at our cute little the feet of our little Linux guy there, and we'll just wait. Alright, here we go, and it should be up in just a moment here. I got a mouse. Let me move this up a little bit so you can see. Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and hit forward. We're going to go through this fairly quickly. So, yes, I agree to the license agreement. Yay, if you want to read it, you can. I'm just going to go through this. Alright, I'm creating my initial user. This is not the root user. This is the regular user. So, let's call him Dolson. That would be Devin Olson. Let's go with P-A-S-S-W-O-R-D and P-A-S-S-W-O-R-D, and when I hit forward, it's going to yell at me, hey, that password is too weak, it's based on a dictionary tag, do you want to use it anyway? One of the interesting things about Linux is it assumes that you're smart, and it assumes because you are in charge and you're setting it up, if you want to shoot yourself in the foot and say yes here and choose this intentionally weak password, go right ahead, it'll let you. Your operating system is only as secure as you allow it to be. So there's the time. Okay, here we go. Insufficient memory to configure kdump. What the heck is kdump? Well, kdump is a kernel crash dumping mechanism. I have never seen this error in other versions of CentOS. Only in this version. I've never had this problem. I've been able to enable kdump as I see fit. So I don't think it's a problem with the entire CentOS version 6. I think this is a problem with this particular brand new installation. It's only been 2 weeks old and we're having an issue. Or it could be a problem with the fact that I'm running in a VM. Either way, it doesn't bother me at this point because I really don't care to enable kdump. I have no need to do so. This is primarily a test and demonstration machine. So I'm going to go ahead and hit finish. And now the system is going to kind of redo its thing. And here we go. So what that pause there, that wasn't a complete reboot. What that was is the GUI environment was reloading, and now I'm able to log in, and I have to enter my password, P-A-S-S-W. I typed it wrong, P-A-S-S-W-O-R-D. So here we go. We're going to log in, and the machine is almost up. We're getting there. We're getting close. Tick tock, tick tock. Okay, and the machine is up. One thing I want you to notice here, on your initial installation, you're not going to have internet access. See, if I kind of bring up this browser, and I'm going to start my Firefox. Oh no, the server can't be found. Why? Well, that's because, you see this little guy right here? This little icon indicates my network activity, and by default, my Ethernet device is not turned on. So to turn it on, I need to click that one time. You'll see my network will try and load, and it's going to come up, and to verify that it's up, let's go to the greatest website in the world. That would be www.devinolson.net. Let's see if the site's up, and look at that. Okay, cool, website's up. We're real happy. I've got this. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and save and quit, and at this point our CentOS is installed. It's operational. We're good to go, and yeah, so please join me next time for the next video in the series where we will prep the OS for the Domino 852 installation, and we'll go ahead and install Domino. Thank you for joining me.